Hello, I'm Cindy with Wisconsin Voices for Recovery, and this is Speak Out on Stigma. Today we'll be hearing from Sky, Clinical Director and co-founder of the Kaya Harm Reduction Clinic. Hi, Sky. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
It's good. I'm good. I'm good. Would you share with us some of the stigmatizing language you've dealt with and how it made you feel?
Yeah. So I've dealt with a lot of different stigmatizing language. I've been called a junkie. I've been called a crackhead. I've been called a meth head. Right by it's run the gamut. I will say that the most harmful stigmatizing language was definitely when I was seeking help. So initially, like when my use really took place in Baltimore. And the first time that I sought help, I had to go and do an assessment. And I wanted to go on methadone in order to treat my substance use disorder. And the woman that I did the assessment with said that Baltimore County wouldn't fund my treatment because I wasn't prostituting myself yet. And she was very clear on the yet, and then told me to come back when I was. And that was like really, right? Like it's not just the language, it's just those incredibly damaging expectations. So, I think that the thing that hurts the most, it really depends on the source, right? Because I am a strong advocate. I can stand up for myself, but at that time in my life, I was I was seeking support. I was seeking help, and to have someone in the treatment field speak to me like that really destroyed my hope. And it took me a long time to try to get help again after that.
Yeah, that's really hard. I've heard that from others as well, that stigma, especially when you're reaching out for help, can have such a devastating impact because you are in that vulnerable place and you are looking for help and to, be stigmatized, to be judged, to be denied, is a particularly harmful.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Especially when you're so vulnerable at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And how can reducing stigma help save lives?
Yeah, so I think that if it wasn't for the stigma that we face as a community, that the overdose epidemic wouldn't have gone this far, right? You know, I know that COVID, it was much larger numbers over a much shorter period of time, but because it impacted everyone, resources were mobilized and they were mobilized quickly, right? Funding was not an issue. Like anything that needed to happen was going to happen in order to deal with the pandemic. And the same year, like that 2020, when we were struggling through the pandemic, we lost 120,000 people in our community that year. um, right, and being part of that community, like that's not just a number, right? Like how many virtual funerals did I go to that year, right? Like, how much devastation was that for us, for all of us in community. So I think that, you know, because it's been like presented to society that a person using drugs has some like moral failing or is a second class citizen, or their substance use has been criminalized. You have to take like a urine analysis test in order to get food stamps, right? Like that's sending a very clear message that people who use drugs don't deserve to eat, right? Like, this is the system that we are working in, and it dehumanizes us over and over and over again, until we believe it, right? Like we have that internalized stigma. And, my self talk, it took me a long time to like break that idea that I was a junkie and I was a criminal and that was all I would ever be. It took me years of being out of that in order to be able to start challenging that narrative, because it was so ingrained in me, right? But you know, if other groups, if 120,000 people die in a year, right? Like action is taken. It is appalling, and action is taken. And because we are dehumanized, it seems like, society is pretty apathetic towards whether or not we live or die. Um, and we need to change that.
And it's heartbreaking.
It is, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Like,
Because, oh, go ahead.
yeah, like I was just gonna say, like, we know, right? Like, we are in community. Like, we know how many amazing people use drugs, right? Like, that it doesn't have anything to do with like being a good or a bad person, right? Like, there is so much richness to the recovery and the people who use drugs community in Madison. And we know so many wonderful wonderful people, right? And I wish that society could see all of that richness and all of that humanity and all of the beauty that is in our community.
I agree. And lift people up and support them, especially when they're asking for help, becoming vulnerable, instead of giving them more judgment, and barriers. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. And, like just unconditional positive regard. It's like the foundation of therapy, right? And if we can do that for folks, right, and we can help them to start challenging some of that internalized stigma, people heal. It's amazing, right? I've gotten to see it over and over and over again in my career, and it's beautiful, and it reminds me that humanity is beautiful, and it is my absolute favorite part of my job.
Yes, yes. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so. Yeah. I guess, for anybody that wants to take action to challenge stigma, I tend to take action about the things that make me the most angry. Anger always fuels my activism. That's like how I express anger in my life. So, there's lots of organizations that are really working hard, in order to challenge that stigma, and don't be afraid to speak out, and become an advocate yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sky, for sharing your views on stigma. And thank you to our viewers for watching. Speak Out on Stigma is a forum to raise awareness about the harmful impact of stigma on those in and seeking recovery. Recovery is for everyone. Together, we can eliminate stigma. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this video. Thank you and have a good day.